Hello, hello. There we go. Thomas Morgan. We're going to wait a while, Thomas, before we see who shows up. Give him a little time because it really starts at 5:45. Have you been in this before? Let me see if my audio is working. Oh, yours is not. Test my speed. And now testing my mic. Hmm. Okay. Seems to be working. Not sure about the mic. Oh, that's why. There we go. Audio. Okay, now test the mic. Test. And now we test the mic. Oh, okay, there we go. That's better. And the tests. Let me just record the opening because I always have a problem with that. So recording. Okay. Hi, you're watching Going Viral. Today is the 12th of March, 2025. And we're just getting started here, waiting for the crew to come aboard. We'll see what happens. Going to pause until we got enough people to go start. See you in a little bit. Yeah, da, 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 da. That's what that looks like. There we go. I think that's a better look, sort of. Well, I'm going to record something just to talk myself, waiting to see who shows up, just to fill the background with some data. So I'll record that. Uh, I I went to a community center to have lunch because they were supposed to be having fish. Well, it was a poor excuse for fish, but I did meet some new people there. These are senior citizens, mostly ladies, but there's a few men too. And as the lunch was over, I got into a conversation with a woman there. Hi, Thomas.
Hello.
Have you, let me stop what I was talking about. Have you ever been part of this kind of Zoom meeting before for this one?
Well, a little bit, but I don't know about this one.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of fishing. Okay. So what have
Okay,
I
that's
got?
good. Well, you're good. You're into, we're just having political discussion. Did you get the invite with a list of topics?
Well, I've got something here, but I'm not quite sure what I have. I'm not.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. No
I, I,
obligation.
I'm not in the computer generation.
Yeah,
I'm old
well,
fashioned.
we all got our foot in it a little bit, with credit cards and everything.
Yeah.
Uh, what's your background? I'm just curious because I know that Jim told me he was sending out an invite.
I'm a retired Army officer
Oh,
who is very interested in military history, and I live in Stillicum, Washington, near Fort Lewis, Washington. And I have a great interest in military things because I spent a couple of years in Vietnam and 4 years at Fort Sill and 3 years in Germany and a year in Panama and other places, and I'm interested in all that stuff.
so you really you got a lot of diverse experience about the military, U.S. military operations in terms of
Well,
operating
I have
procedures.
some. I have the way I saw it. Okay. Yeah. I won't say it was always the correct way, but it's the way I saw it.
Well, I don't mean like, how do you load a gun? I mean, what are the administrative protocols on the base, on duty, on filling
Yeah.
out
Well,
forms?
it changes.
Oh, really?
And I've seen it change. When I came in the Army, we worked our soldiers hard and they were drafted soldiers. And I paid my soldiers about $50 a month. And I worked them half a day on Saturday, and if they passed the morning inspection, they might be able to lay in their bunks on Sunday. But I got them up on Monday, and we went to the field. It's
So,
not like that anymore. It's not like that anymore. Soldiers, soldiers are not treated that way, and well, I think it's probably good, but that's the way it was. They made $50 a month, and I made $200 a month. And now all that's changed. So anyway, it's interesting. It's
well,
interesting for me.
was it, what was it? Let's say you're not deployed. I know you were in Vietnam and you were in active theater at different
Oh yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah.
But what's the difference? What do you do when you're not in an active theater? You just standing around, or you do
Well,
drill?
I live
I don't
here
mean
in
you
Tacoma.
specifically. I mean your whole platoon.
Well, I live here in Washington State, and Stillicum. It's right near Fort Lewis, so I'm very close to the post. And I go up there all the time. I buy my gas there and things like that.
No, I
And
don't. I
I'm
know.
interested because for 20 years I worked for the Battle Command Training Program after I retired, and I ran them and I helped run war games all over the world. We did one in Mali. Would you believe Mali in
Wow,
Africa? Africa. We did one in Mali. Yeah.
wow, that's
Well,
amazing.
yeah, it was amazing. I don't think they're a big threat, but anyway.
No, but you went there because I guess because of the climate and the terrain. It's like a
I
hot.
went there because it was the job.
I know, but the reason they sent you there to do the drill, the training,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was
It
because
was
of
big.
the.
Well, Mali had French equipment, and they were trying to kind of get out from under the French a little bit. And I haven't really followed up on Mali too much after that. But anyway, it was an interesting country, and of course, did Kenya. We went up north in Kenya and ran a war game in a place in northern Canada that had been purchased by William Holden, the actor, and some of his friends to make movies. Well, they didn't make movies up there, but they put all the equipment in so we could run computer assisted war games up there. And that was interesting as hell. Up in Kenya. Kenya, oh boy.
So,
So
and that was pretty recent. Was that recent? I mean, in the
that was 20
last
years ago.
20
No, it
years
wasn't
ago.
recent. No,
But
no,
even
no.
then, computers played a part in Army groundwork
Oh
work.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, sure they did. Yeah. Especially in the artillery. I was basically in the artillery, and uh, you know, we we relied not as much on computers as they do today. And I don't trust computers, quite frankly, because I'm what they call a charts and darts guy. I plot the target on a map and stick a pin in it, and I say shoot it. And they did it. And I didn't relate to this artificial intelligence and all this other bullshit. Intelligence is intelligence, and if you make it good, you kill it. If you find it, you shoot the shit out of them. You know. Well, anyway, that's just my philosophy. I don't
No,
know.
that's okay. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
I
now,
mean,
what do you do, sir?
oh no, now I'm not doing, I'm just doing video editing now. I worked a
Hmm.
lot with computers,
Yeah,
you know, programming and stuff like that. And
yeah.
other,
Well, I'm not very computer literate. No, no. Uh-uh.
well, you got a cell phone, right? You got a
Well, I have a
smartphone.
computer. I see your
It was
picture on the screen. I
we're
can do
looking at
that.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I got involved with this because uh, who's our grandfather here? Uh,
You mean Jim?
yeah, Jim. His uncle was my tactical officer at West Point,
Wow.
and that was the connection. And then he kind of got me in this stuff, and I thought it was fascinating as hell. And I enjoy him, and I enjoy his programs, and so I'm retired. So it's how I kind of spend my time sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the last thing we did just about last Sunday was or no, it was 2 Sundays ago, the 3rd, March 3rd, with a guy named Peter Fritsch, something like that. He's a professor, but he wrote about 6 books, mostly about um, Germany during
yeah.
the development of Adolf Hitler coming to power in Third Reich.
Who coming to power?
Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, that was I was watching that because that interested me. I had a couple of tours in Germany, and you know, and I remember that. I remember 1961. We had a big crisis over Berlin, and we all went up to the Gale positions. And the first time I'd ever seen the nuclear weapons issued, tactical nuclear weapons. And the Russians didn't have tactical nuclear weapons. They had the big ones. We had tactical nuclear weapons, and we made them stand down. We got access to Berlin,
But
and
but
that
you
was that was a neat place. I'll tell you, at that time, that was a neat place. Have you ever seen the movie Cabaret?
yeah, sure.
Well, that was 1929, but 1961, that's the way it was too.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. So you were in Berlin and they had
Well, I
deployed,
went up. I was really in Heidelberg, but I went up to Berlin several times.
but
You
I
know,
mean, but I'm saying they had deployed tactical nuclear weapons.
we had deployed tactical nuclear weapons on the front line,
Just
and that
just
was the secret then.
yeah.
And maybe I shouldn't even say it now, but we had tactical nuclear weapons, and the Russians didn't. And so we could have done a damage to them without setting the whole world on fire.
Uh-huh. So
Maybe
this
they were smart enough to realize that.
was
Yeah.
this around the time the wall's coming down?
1961.
Uh-huh.
The wall was up. We got access to Berlin, although it was a divided city until several years later.
Oh, I see.
Interesting place. One of my friends was the last guy that ran the prison in West Berlin, and that's where the German guy that flew to England to try to make peace. What was his name?
I'm
Well,
not a
anyway,
you
he
mean the
died
guy
there. He was there forever, and he died there.
oh,
He was one of Hitler's guys, and he took off one day and flew to England about 1940 or 41, and was doing some kind of a peace deal, and they just arrested his ass, and we ended up getting him, and we put him in the Spangdahlem prison in Berlin, and that's where he lived and died. Yeah, yeah.
but that doesn't sound right. He went over as a diplomat.
No, he wasn't a diplomat. He went over in a military airplane and he parachuted out. Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
thought you said he was trying to make some kind of a
He
concession,
was. He was trying to get some kind of a peace deal going.
but without authority.
I don't think he had the authority to do it. No.
Wow.
No.
That's a story that's never been told.
Well, what was interesting, we got access to Berlin, and in the military, we had three sectors of Berlin: the British, the French, and the American, and then the Russian sector. And it was really easy to go between the Allied sectors, but getting behind the Russian sector was somewhat difficult. you had your paperwork squared away and everything. You know how the military is; they love paperwork. And
Yeah.
so I went over there several times and looked around. Potsdam, was on that side. Where we had the Potsdam Conference. And
So,
Potsdam was built up by Frederick the Great to be a kind of a competition to the French in Fontainebleau. Elaborate buildings. It's a nice tourist attraction, but because of the Iron Curtain, not too many people went.
yeah.
And one day I went over and I knew Frederick the Great had died and was buried there. I knew that much, but I didn't know where. And I went over and I started asking questions. Wo ist der Tomb von Frederick the Grosse? The Germans didn't want to tell me. But he lived in a chateau in Potsdam. He didn't live in a castle. He lived in a chateau. And he's buried with his dogs in a, you have to stand on his grave. It's a flat stone, says Frederick the Grosse. And it's down from his chateau. It's not in a castle. It's not in a church or anything. And he's buried with his dogs. His wife, was off someplace else. And I thought that was fascinating stuff.
This is
I was
Alexander or Peter? Alexander? You
Frederick.
said huh?
Frederick the Great.
Frederick. Okay.
Frederick, yeah. And of course, I was a lot younger then. I'm an old man now, so.
Nah, you don't look that old. You're not old. You're not that. You're still kicking.
I'm very old.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I graduated from West Point in 1958, so you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, you're up there.
Yeah, I'm up there. So that's why I like Digman. I like to listen to him and everything. And of course, he's a younger version of his uncle, who was one of my tactical officers at West Point.
Oh, when you see Jim, he reminds you of your tactical offers.
Well, I don't
officer.
see him. I see him like on television. I've never met him in person. Yeah, but no, a little bit. Sure it is. And so I like to tune in on these things that he has, and I'm a historian, and I like to listen to this stuff and talk to people and everything. And so I guess that's my interest in it. Yeah.
Did you do any service over in the Pacific Theater? You said.
Oh yeah, I spent 2 years in Vietnam. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's Vietnam. That's after World War II. I mean, during World War II.
Oh, I was a kid.
You were a kid. You were like
Yeah,
in your teens.
I lived in the Presidio, San Francisco, with my parents. My dad was in the army.
Oh,
I remember World War II. I can remember it. I was just a kid, but I can. I can remember. The Japanese uh, captured. They were the only people that ever captured any U.S. property. Kiska and Attu in the Aleutian Islands. That was U.S. property. Nobody else ever got got anything that we really owned. We didn't own the Philippines or anything. And I remember that operation. I vaguely can remember it as a kid.
so all of those islands. Well, I mean, you must have studied
Kiska
this.
and Attu on the far end of the Aleutian Islands.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like Guam and Midway. None of those are U.S.
That was later.
territories.
That was later when we had a full-fledged war going.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, the Japanese occupied those two islands to draw us off so they could have free reign at Midway. We didn't know that at the time. But we sent the 7th Division from Fort Ord, California, up to the Aleutians.
I didn't even know the U.S. Had ownership of the Aleutian Islands.
Oh yeah. Well, we bought the whole thing from Russia.
Yeah. Okay. So it went
Yeah,
right down to the last piece of earth.
And they're right on the end of it. And so that it was not a good campaign, but then we got rid of the Japs, and then when we attacked Kiska, the Japs had either evacuated or committed suicide, so we didn't have to fight over that one. And then the Battle of Midway took place, and of course we all know about that.
Yeah. But on that, your statement that maybe they committed suicide or they evacuated,
They did. That's a historical fact. They did. A lot of them committed suicide. Those the Japanese could not pull off before. See, the two islands, Attu first, and we got it. And then we were going to jump on Kiska, and the Japanese left. They were close together.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it's not a well-known campaign at all. No.
No,
Yeah.
never heard. And it was just done as a distraction so they'd have more freedom in the Pacific. It's a
They
diversion.
were trying to pull us off so they could do better at Midway. Yeah. And then of
Yeah,
course Midway's famous and it's pretty well known, you know. Yeah.
right. So when you got into the art, well, you were just a kid then, but you follow in your father's footsteps, joined the service,
Yes,
and you went to West Point. Come on,
yes, yes.
how'd you get in? I had a friend who got in, you know, and he
I got
didn't make
in
it.
by a senator from Idaho.
Oh, yeah, he got in because he was a gymnast. He was
Well,
he was
you
outstanding.
can get in several ways. You can get in
Yeah,
by being a soldier. You can do the political route, you know. Uh,
yeah,
and if you were a gymnast and an athlete, you'd probably want to get a state politician a senator or congressman to recommend you.
yeah, yeah,
But one thing a lot of people do not know: if you're a young man, you can be nominated for West Point by your unit commander, or you can just write them yourself and say, "I want to go to West Point," and they'll send you some stuff and check you out. That's how you get in.
yeah.
It's not that hard, but it requires a certain amount of paperwork, and young people don't like to do paperwork.
Yeah, but it's also a big commitment,
Well,
you
certainly,
know.
yeah, yeah. You've got to stay, and after you graduate, you might have to fight. It might get dangerous, and all that.
That's right. Yeah. So
Mhm.
so right from West Point, you went to Vietnam right after
No,
that?
no, not right
Uh,
away. I went to some schools, and I went to Fort Lewis, and then the war started, and in Vietnam, and I went there, and then an occupation of Germany, and Panama, and what we did during the Cold War, basically, and
yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't expect you to tell all the things that were, a lot of confidential stuff you must have been involved with in
well,
certain times.
it's not so much confidential. It's what do I remember?
Oh,
That. Now, where are you located?
oh, I'm in LA, Los Angeles.
Oh, good.
You know,
Mhm.
it's where everybody's shallow and insincere. That's the cultural background here. Everybody's like,
Yeah, well,
how are you doing?
I can remember living down there during the war.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
In
because
San
my father
Diego?
was in the army, and I can remember living down there in San Jose and Monterey, and
Oh, yeah. Well,
getting,
that's way up
and we
north.
created a lot of units down there that went places.
But
Yeah,
that's north. That's close to where you live. I mean, it's not far from Washington. That's like 2 hours away.
in California. Oh
Where
no,
it's
it's more so.
San Jose and all of that. Yeah.
San Jose's a long way away. Yeah, where are you
Oh,
located?
right in Los Angeles. Right
Yeah,
in
well, you know where San Jose is.
yeah, but that's way up north. That's San Francisco area.
Well,
You
it's not
know,
that far, is it? Maybe
well,
100
it's
miles.
6 hours by
Oh,
car.
really? That far? I can
Yeah.
remember living with my family in the Presidio of San Francisco in the early 1940s, and we had air raids, blackouts, uh, and the chimney was clogged. They didn't want anything going up the chimney, and everything. And I can remember that. I can remember the blackouts and the searchlights that go on all over, San Francisco Bay. Some airplane had strayed in, And then a little later, we started having German POWs come around and cut the grass in front of the housing. But we were
Really?
not allowed to talk to them.
They brought them all the
German
way up there.
POWs that they had policed up in North Africa.
And they brought them all the way over to the West Coast.
Oh yeah, we had them. We had a lot of them over here. Yeah, and they were pretty good prisoners. They did a lot of work. They worked hard, and we paid them. We treated them right, and they were never going to get home. You know, not not that far away from Germany.
So that's interesting. Do you think that they were like surrendered or captured, or what do you think? What
Well, they had been captured in North Africa, most of them. That was early in the war. We were in North Africa early in the war, and they sent them there, and they did those things, and I don't. Well, of course, I was just a kid, but I was not supposed to go talk to them. Sometimes I did, you
uh
know. Sometimes I did because many of them could speak English. I couldn't speak German. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of ironic. I mean, I'm basically from New York, so I didn't come out here until about 75. But the
Hmm.
thing is, put the Japanese American citizens in a concentration, not a concentration camp, but like, a security camp. And but the POWs from Germany bring
Yeah.
them out west.
Everybody got a share. The Canadians did. When I was stationed in Germany, I talked to some Germans, and this was a long time ago, and taking a train someplace and sit next to a guy, and he'd talk about his experiences. I remember one guy had been in Canada. They'd sent him to Canada, and he worked on a wheat farm. And if he was a good soldier and did his work, the Canadians paid him a little bit. We paid him too. Paid him a little bit. He could go in town in this place in Canada and see a movie on Wednesday night. And then if he was really good, he could go to town on Saturday and do the same thing and maybe go shopping with the pennies that we paid him, as long as he'd come back. Because where the hell was he going to go? And I can remember the German POWs, and I don't recall we ever really had much of a problem with them.
No,
But
I
but
don't. Yeah,
on the Japanese, what they did on the Japanese, they moved all the men off the West Coast and relocated them in the middle of America. And my
Ansar.
father had to take a trainload of them, and it was women and children. They put the men in jail. The women and children had to go to concentration camps, and he took a bunch of them to Arkansas. And he said they were the best behaved people he had ever seen in the world. Women and children, and he thought it was going to be a problem. It was no problem whatsoever. We really did a job on the Japanese, on the West Coast. We got them off the West Coast because we were afraid of them. And
Yeah.
then later, yeah, it's interesting. Later, okay, now you got Hawaii, you know. So somebody in Hawaii, one of the legislators says, "Oh, we got to take all the Japanese men and intern them. They're dangerous. We're at war." And the guy that ran the FBI there said, wait a minute. When the ships go to sea and when they come back, who the hell do you think maintains all these ships in the Pearl Harbor? Japanese did it. They did all the work. Who the hell do you think? We can't get rid of them. So we didn't send them to concentration camps. That guy became the first governor and the first senator that said, "Hey, we can't screw around with the Japanese like this in the islands. You could do it in California, but you can't do it here." Yeah. And I thought that was interesting.
So what would you think it was just a political thing that the public, in other words, the politicians are saying, well, we're doing something. We're going to move the Japanese off the
Yeah,
coast.
it was a big scare, because I can remember we thought the Japanese were coming.
Uh-huh.
I can remember air raids, and they shelled a post in Oregon, and they might have shelled an oil refinery in Los Angeles, around the Los Angeles area, but the Japanese were not really capable of coming this far. But we didn't know that. We thought they were going to get us.
Right.
Some people thought that.
Well, I guess that, there's been major migration. Germany is a big population in the middle of the country,
Yeah.
comes from Germany, right?
Hmm.
So they're more integrated into the history in America than Asian populations. They're more,
Well, of
part
course,
of,
it's the prejudice we had against the Asians.
right,
The Germans were just like us,
right.
and many of us had German extraction, but
Yeah,
it was racial, and they wanted to move them all off the West Coast because we thought maybe the Japanese were coming. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. They didn't have a good, they got a bad PR about what happened in China where they moved into
Yeah,
Manchuria and
yeah,
China. So,
yeah.
they seem kind of ruthless. But I guess you could say the same thing for the Germans going into
Well,
Poland.
they came back after the war,
Yeah.
and
Personally,
went into business. They were businessmen,
yeah,
and they did a lot of agricultural things, and they were smart. The Japanese were smart as hell, and
yeah,
they had a work ethic that you don't always see in the Americans. They
absolutely.
yeah.
Dedication, nose to the grindstone.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I had several classmates that were Asian, you know, and these guys that could run circles around us because they were so good, you know, because they were serious, they were dedicated, and they weren't necessarily party boys or anything, Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But I'd
yeah.
say that your career in the military was very comfortable as you fit. And you had your gratification, you had your
Yeah.
challenges, you had your
Well,
successes.
I was supposed to, you know. I was supposed to because I went to West Point. I was supposed to do all those things, and I did them. You're
Yeah,
damn right I did them. And I like the Panamanians, and I like the Europeans. I like the Germans I met, like the French, you know, and everything. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
so in your travels around in these different posts, you were um, uh, the accommodation of the public was, well, cordial, wasn't antagonistic, like, dirty American type thing.
No,
There was
no,
no counters, no counters.
no. You had to be careful in Vietnam because some of them were communist inspired, and some of them were not so much. You had to be careful in Vietnam because we were fighting a war over there, and you had to, that was a little different. And I'm sure I didn't go to Afghanistan or anything, but I'm sure it was the same in Afghanistan. You got to be careful. You know,
When it's a hot war and there's conflict
yeah, and
going on,
yeah. Of
it's a
course, we
different
called it
story.
a we called it a Cold War in Europe. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was a Cold War, but there was some hot scenes even then.
yeah.
I
Oh,
think,
yeah, yeah. There were some. Yeah, because yeah, because I ended up in the nuclear business too, and that was interesting. You know,
really,
all the bombs we've got stashed all over the world. I wouldn't
every
attend.
once in a while you hear a story about there's a couple of bombs missing. We don't know where they are. You know,
Well, I'm sure that happens. Yeah, it could happen. But I mean, we maintained very strict custody of them. And the only time I thought we were going to shoot them was in '61 when we had this big fracas over Berlin, and they delivered the warheads to the firing site. Before they'd always kept them back, locked up, and they
yeah,
delivered them. And I'd never seen one. Well, the nuclear warhead doesn't look much different than any other than maybe the paint on it's different one thing or another. But they delivered those suckers, and I think we would have fired them if the Russians hadn't have backed down. I think we would
yeah.
have fired them.
Do you think that's still part of the arsenal?
Oh,
The
we
st
should. Oh, we still have them, of course. Yeah, we have more than we ever had. Oh yeah,
So it's still an option. In
Oh
other
yeah.
words,
Well,
it's
that's what they talk about in Ukraine. We haven't gone to nuclear warfare, and we
yeah,
hope we
but you're
don't.
talking about a modified explosion. It's not, not as catastrophic as
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
it's
Yeah,
it's like 1/10 of Hiroshima or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
It's
But
local.
anyway, Hiroshima really, convinced us to try to hit them with a nuke, and I don't think we really knew what we were doing when we did it, but we did it. I don't think we really understood the full impact of
Well, I'd
of
heard about the military's come up with these other bombs that doomsday bombs that, pull all the air out, get rid, other bombs that are comparable to nuclear, but not nuclear.
well, I'm sure we have a lot of stuff, and I'm not in that business anymore, so
Oh,
I don't get too involved in it. But when I was, it was the size. 8-inch
yeah.
howitzers had a nuclear round. Honest John rocket had a nuclear round, and of
Okay.
course the Air Force could drop bombs. And now we've expanded that somewhat, and
Which
there's
I
more
got
than
to,
ever.
I know a little bit about nuclear, and the thing is that it's got a shelf life, the
Yeah.
uranium deteriorates and,
Hmm.
so you got to deal with that. It's still
Yeah.
radioactive. So
Hmm.
that they have to, that was part of the thing is like, if you don't use them, you still got to inventory them and
Well,
warehouse
that's
them.
why we have these nuclear. That's why we have units that do that.
Oh,
Say, I was in a unit that did that. We inspected them and checked them out, and you
and you
know,
checked them back and brought them out of the
yeah,
country
yeah,
and
and
took them
everything,
to,
so they'd be ready. Yeah.
oh, so they didn't go into storage. They still
No,
ready
they
for
went into
deployment,
storage. We
but ready
used
for
a
deployment.
Yeah, we used a lot of the old. Well, the Germans had done a lot of caves and everything in Bavaria. The Germans had, and ammo dumps and everything. So we used those. Those were good places for them because you could guard them easily and everything.
What
And
about the
then
security? There got to be
well, we
security.
provided the security, and the Germans provided the security. They helped us, because we were defending Germany. You know,
Right.
so yeah. And those weapons are still there. They're bigger and better and all this.
But they could, so my question is, because of the advancement and modernization, that they sometimes retire some of those older weapons to
Oh yeah,
replace
they
them.
do it all the time. Yeah. Oh yeah, they do it all the time. Yeah.
So when they deconstruct the old weapons, you can't just throw it in the ocean, You
No,
got
but they know how to do it. They know how to do that, and the technicians do. It's primarily an ordnance corps function,
okay.
you know, and they can do that, and we have depots here in the United States that have them too. And they don't like to talk about them. And
No, you don't want anybody to really know where they are
no,
because it's a
yeah,
threat.
yeah,
I always thought, in other words, if there's a depot with, let's say, 1,000 of these older uh, tactical nuclear weapons,
mhm.
that's a terrorist site. That's a
Oh yeah,
liability.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, there's a place in Washington where they process, and nuclear weapons and store them down there in caves and everything. There's no reason for me to go there, and they wouldn't let me in now anyway. you know,
It's not a
those
place to
guys.
spend a vacation, that's for sure.
No, those guys, those nuclear guys, the Ordnance Corps, they get really upset over some of that. And and I can say this because it's been in the newspapers. We're developing Guam as a site for long range missiles.
Which one? Guam?
Guam.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we always used it as an air base. We bombed Vietnam from Guam, but we used conventional weapons. But we're putting nuclear weapons out in Guam
Well,
and
but
some
then
other
there's
places.
so that's a big transport job. I mean, you got to get from where they are over to
Oh
Guam.
yeah, you take them out, and
You
yeah,
got to be
yeah.
careful, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's what the Ordnance Corps does.
Oh,
That's one of the
that's,
big functions of the Ordnance Corps, and of course conventional ammunition too. You know,
yeah.
yeah.
I know the Russians used to have deployment on railroad trains. They used to have special railroad cars
Well,
that
the
would,
Germans did. The Germans had those long range cannons, but it was because they were on for the range. You know, the Paris gun was on a railroad carriage in World War One, but it just fired a conventional round, and
well, I didn't know
they
the
could hit
Germans had it.
Paris. They could hit Paris. That was as close as for accuracy as they could come. They must have fired something like 200 rounds out of that gun towards the end of World War One. The first round hit a church and killed a whole bunch of people, and the other rounds landed all over. These are not nuclear rounds. Landed all over Paris, and it upset the French, but it didn't really change the course of the war much. The Paris gun, yeah.
And now you got to consider that they're allies, more or less. Now they're with the EU and everything, and
Well, with
hopefully they're
NATO,
over it.
with
NATO.
NATO, my one of my last assignments was in NATO, and with NATO, and I think we had 18 nations in it, and now I think we're up to 24,
So
24
now,
nations.
so you must be following in the news because of the stuff with the
Well, I'm
Ukraine and
always interested in it. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
I know Russia doesn't like. I mean, the one thing I know is Russia. That what the scuttlebutt or whatever you want to call it
Hmm.
was that when Russia made an agreement that they're going to dissolve the USSR and allow East Germany and West Germany to connect.
Hmm.
They got an agreement that was NATO will not increase. They will not keep coming towards towards Russia.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that was, but it was not a written, it wasn't a treaty or anything. It was just an
Well, those
agreement.
countries have. If you're a NATO nation, and of course
Yeah.
I think there's now
Well, they just got
aren't there
Sweden and
aren't there
Denmark.
30 about 30 NATO nations now?
Yeah, they got Sweden and Finland
Yeah.
joined.
Anyway, yeah. So I don't.
Well,
There's
I mean,
always the threat that if Russia attacks one of those countries, we might pop a nuke on them. You know, and boy,
yeah,
that's above my pay grade.
yeah.
It's who makes those decisions. And of course, I don't think there's anybody in Washington that's really smart enough to do it anymore. But I don't know.
Yeah, let's hope they forget how to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And
but
but
I'm
but
just
you see,
saying
they
that
have the smaller ones now. We could fight a nuclear war over Ukraine with the small yield ones and do a hell of a lot of damage. We
yeah,
could.
but it's radioactive.
Oh, sure, yeah, we'd leave a mess behind. Oh, yeah,
Right.
terrible. It would be terrible. Yeah, but I mean,
They
that's
talking about like I call them real estate bombs because nobody wants to live there afterwards, even if there's no physical damage.
no,
So
that's very very true. Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
say like 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl,
Hmm.
okay, get out. I
Yeah.
don't they haven't evacuated Fukushima, but to a lesser degree. So if they use the smaller tactics, it's nobody's gonna you can't live there, not gonna live there for at least 50 years or 100
Well, if
years.
we had popped them in 1961 to ensure that we could have got into Berlin, the Russians didn't want to let us in Berlin.
Yeah,
Those would have been small ones.
yeah.
They would have been 8-inch howitzers and honest John rockets, and
Hmm.
they would have been small nuclear warheads. But the Russians didn't have any. They had only had big ones.
Well, did you know you were in ordnance or you were in
No, I was in the
artillery?
artillery, but I had to shoot those
Artillery.
things. See,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
shot
So
those things. The
so
ordnance would
you
deliver it, and we'd shoot it.
yeah, so you would know what the anticipated territory like it's like 20 square blocks or
Yeah, yeah, but we know about how much damage it'd do. An 8-inch round would do a pretty good job on a city, quite frankly. an
Yeah,
8-inch nuclear round would. And, but I don't think we ever fired one on a city, so it's hard to say sometimes.
they probably ran some tests over the ocean or someplace or on a
Oh
vacated.
yeah, 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 yeah. They had a pretty good idea of what it is do, yeah. Yeah.
My brother
Now
worked for
where are you located now?
Los Angeles.
You're in Los Angeles, okay.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, just a little bit below Beverly Hills. Like there's Beverly
Are you
Hills,
in
and
the
then,
area that had the fires and all that business?
well, I mean, I'm familiar with it. It's like a half hour away,
Hmm.
but it didn't come down here.
Yeah, okay.
It was up on top of a hill,
Mhm,
and very prestigious. A lot
mhm.
of celebrities and rich people.
Oh,
Very
good.
shockingly prestigious. And then another area on the east side, which was happened to be socially popular with middle class African Americans,
Hmm.
in Altadena. So
Well,
that was more,
I can remember living in California in 1941, 42, 43.
yeah.
With my parents. And Fort Ord, Fort Ord was in Monterey was kind of where we ended up. And
Is it there's no place prettier than that. That's the most
yeah.
gorgeous place. Monterey,
Hmm.
Carmel,
And I'll
and
tell
Big
you,
Sur. Exquisite, exquisite.
I've
I don't
gone
think
down
you're old
there
enough to
on
appreciate it.
I've gone there on trips, and of course it's not like that anymore. But when I was in the Army, I could play Pebble Beach for $25, and I could walk on.
Uh-huh.
Never happen now. If I could even get a tea time, it'd probably be 2 years from now. It'd cost me $600 or something. I don't know what the hell. But I watched Arnold Palmer and Bing Crosby and Bob Hope and all those guys play at Pebble Beach because I lived there when I was in Monterey, and that was nice. Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
but
that's a good part
those
of
are
the
days are
country.
long gone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyhow, yeah, no, I'm just living in LA and I'm just a civilian. Oh, my
Hmm.
brother, he's worked for a military thing. There's an arsenal in New Jersey called Picatinny Arsenal.
Oh yeah, oh yes, yeah, very famous. Yeah,
So he
yeah.
worked there as a civilian,
Oh yeah, yeah.
physicist.
Well, they run the arsenals. You'll usually have a colonel and a small staff there, but it's the civilian
Right.
technical people that
That's
do
right.
do
And
the work.
the thing he explained to me that was interesting is that, let's say it's a detonator for a
Yeah.
mine or something, or a bomb, I guess. Some of the bombs go detonate on a certain height. They
Hmm.
detonate
Yeah.
above
Well, they
before
you
they.
can set that. You can set all that stuff in the fuse. Yeah.
Yeah, but the detonators, it says, so they want, let's say there's a request for 10,000 detonators. You got to
Hmm.
make 10,000 detonators because you got to run tests to make
Yeah.
sure that
Yeah.
what you're saying, you can't,
I'm sure. I'm
once you
sure. Yeah.
set it off, you can't use it. So you got to
Yeah.
test to
Yeah.
make
I'm
sure you got
sure.
a very good
Yeah.
batch. So there's a very high likelihood it's going to be effective. But
Yeah.
it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing with West Point. We got to send we got to send like 20,000 soldiers through here before we get a really good general coming out. Somebody who's going to
Well,
make it all the way up.
I hope we can get. Well, I hope we had some good generals in my class.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We had some good ones.
I
Yeah.
mean, but there's a certain amount of people that don't make it through.
Well, no, yeah, but when they
Small amount.
graduate, they're. Let's see. I think they graduated 920 this year.
Oh,
Now, how many of those will stay in the army and make general? I have no idea,
uh-huh.
but some will. Yeah, some will. One of my class, I had some classmates that were pretty high up. You know, one of
Yeah,
them
I
was
remember going up there to visit, like at times.
what?
Um, I
Hmm.
went up to visit there.
Hmm.
I'm sure after you were out, but the point was there used to be a battleship graveyard in the Hudson there. You remember seeing that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. The reserve fleet was there. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
there
You
was
could
this,
see it when you took the train or drove. to New
It's
York
like a
City.
graveyard. I mean, this is where they put the battleships. I don't think they ever
Well,
intended to use them.
they've probably cut most of them up. They do that here in Bremerton too. There's several places where they do it, where they store the old ships, and sometimes
Yeah.
they keep them for a while, and sometimes they cut them up. You know.
Eventually, they can reuse the materials or some to some degree,
Well,
I guess.
yeah, maybe they can. I remember visiting the battleship New Jersey when it was off the coast of Vietnam, and uh,
Oh,
and I think it's a monument someplace now. And the
yeah.
Missouri is in Pearl Harbor, and they've some of the big battleships they've given back to the states. I think, yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
got one in New York. Think it's called the Independence.
That's
It's
probably an aircraft carrier.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's always there, and it's every once a year there's Air Force Day or whatever, and
yeah,
I forget it's a
yeah,
Memorial Day or something like that, and they open it up and everybody goes walking around. I've been around that.
yeah.
Big and
Well,
very impressive, big battleship.
that's interesting. Of course, they put the Missouri in Pearl Harbor, and it's
Uh-huh.
across it's across from what was the one that the Japs sunk in the beginning of the war?
Oh,
Well,
I
it's right
don't
at
know.
Oklahoma, I think. Maybe, well, I don't know, but one's the one they sunk, and the other one they just deactivated it. But it's a tourist attraction. Yeah.
Oh, you mean the U.S. sunk it? It didn't get sunk during Pearl Harbor attack?
No, they sunk a lot of ships in Pearl Harbor during the attack.
Right, I
They
know.
wiped out the battleship fleet.
Yeah.
The aircraft carriers were gone. The aircraft carriers were out delivering aircraft to the islands in the Pacific. And that's what saved our bacon because they came back and we could use them to attack Midway or to fight the Battle of Midway. Yeah, that's what we used. Halsey was out there delivering airplanes to
So
us.
now you said before you're a historian.
Mm-hmm.
You're not publishing books, are you? Are you publishing books?
No, I just write. I used to write articles, and I probably don't do that anymore. I used to write articles for things.
Did you ever take a position on how much intelligence American military and political had about Pearl Harbor? In other words, did they anticipate it and say, because there's always a story going around that FDR, he was not an isolationist. He wanted to participate and
Hmm.
make sure Europe didn't get overwhelmed by Germany, but he didn't have the public support. So, when uh, let's say they say, well, I think they put restrictions on Japan's import of oil.
Hmm.
That got them mad, and
Hmm.
so they said, let
Yeah.
them come. They'll attack
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor, and then we'll be in the war. And then
Well,
the
yeah,
very unusual thing was Japan attacked us. We declared war on Japan, and Germany, as an ally of Japan, said,
uh-huh.
"Well, we're
Yeah.
at war too with America
Yeah.
because of that." That
Yeah.
was maybe he could have done something else, but he did that. So,
Hmm.
what do you have a viewpoint as to whether or not the U.S. benignly said, "Oh, we could use a good attack from Japan. That'll get us in the war." You
Well,
think?
there was a lot of politics in keeping the fleet in Pearl Harbor. A lot of politics involved in that at the time.
Because
Because we
you're
were
never supposed to
we had
keep
been
them.
in China, and and we were in the Philippines, and that was a decision that people have been critical of. We should have dispersed the fleet a little bit. But Halsey had the aircraft carriers out delivering airplanes to some of the islands, so he wasn't there to help defend Pearl Harbor, and so the Japanese pretty much had their will with this at Pearl Harbor. Yeah. I was not there, but I know a lot of people that were, and they talk about it.
So you think it was just an inappropriate military decision
Well, I don't
or
think we thought the Japanese could get there without us stopping them. I don't think that. I think we thought we were safe there, but we weren't.
So,
And times had
underestimated.
changed. The Japanese had the capability of getting there, and maybe we figured they didn't.
That's pretty wild. Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so now what do you think about what's happening with Ukraine and Russia? Do you think that it has to be a stand? Do you think Trump will be able to pull off some kind of a concession
If we give enough,
if you give Russia what they
if
want?
we give if we give enough, yeah.
They'll back
You know,
down at
you
least
know,
for 2 years.
Germany was a divided country for 30 years.
Yeah,
And that was the agreement we had, and that's what we maintained. And I would use that as an example. I think Ukraine will end up a divided country like that. Exactly how, I don't know, but yeah.
that seems like I haven't even heard anybody make that. That seems to be the what like that's the kind of idea going around in Trump's camp of
Well,
like,
God knows what that guy will do. God knows
yeah,
what Trump will do.
yeah,
I mean, he avoided the draft 4 times.
uh-huh,
When he was a young man, he avoided the draft 4 times, and now he wants to be the king of the world.
yeah,
Well, I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to work out that way. Hell, he's almost 80 years old.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you think that the military's in reasonable shape? He put that young guy up and head of the
No, the
department.
Secretary of Defense is an idiot. Yeah. He
Yeah,
appointed some really bad people.
uh-huh,
Yeah. Hedspeth or whatever his name is. Boy,
yeah,
he would have never made corporal in my army. You know,
uh-huh,
he'd have been in my unit. I would have never made him a corporal, you know. But anyway, times change. It's all
yeah.
politics now. Yeah.
So
But
that
but
would
but
be, but
because I was in NATO, I can appreciate the NATO countries. And there's 31 of them. They want to help us, and they will, but they're going to look after themselves too.
well,
And
what you're bringing up is a good solution because let's say you just take an arbitrary number, like
mhm.
if that kind of a separation occurs, and then if it's even only 20 years, Putin's going to be gone. If you can
Mhm.
hold it for 20 years, if you can maintain no conflict for 20 years, there's going to be a change into something in Russia. You
That's
know,
right. Well, you can see what happened in Germany. Germany is a united country now,
right.
and we have troops in Poland. We pushed NATO back, and we have a core headquarters and troops in Poland. So if the Russians attack Poland, we're in it for sure.
Yeah, U.S. troops in Poland,
Yes. Yeah.
not part of NATO, just
Oh,
U.S.
they're part of NATO.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they're U.S. troops, part of NATO. Yeah, we've got them there. And of course, we're worrying about Sweden and some other countries that are sitting right on the border.
Yeah, and Finland. Finland is a
Finland,
surprise because
yeah,
that's like very associated with Russia,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And they're in NATO. They're in now. Now they're in NATO. It's
yeah,
been accepted. So that sounds like a very reasonable
yeah,
strategy.
yeah.
Stall it out. Stall it out. Stop
Well,
the
I think
fighting.
time. Let's take time.
Right.
We screwed around and with the Germany for, well, 1945 till now. We finally got them. We finally got the country back for them. And when I first went to Germany, it was said no officer in the German army that had ever fought under Hitler would ever be promoted again. Well, all those guys have died. And so it's basically a new army. They're not tainted by Hitler like the old ones were. Yeah.
Right. So it got flushed out.
Yeah, time flushed it out. And I didn't know any East German. I didn't know very many people in East Germany. I knew people in West Germany, but we still the country was still divided, So I've been to East Germany, East Berlin, Poland. I've been to those places, but they were under the Russian control. Yeah.
What about Vienna?
Well, that's Austria.
Yeah,
Austria
have you been
was
down there?
Austria was with us.
You've been
Yeah.
down there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, Vienna's a wonderful place to go. You go down the Danube River. Oh yeah. Drink a lot of beer. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's fun. Yeah.
That's supposed to be the most, I don't know, the most beautiful or the most congenial, best, one of the best cities in the world,
Well,
Vienna.
the Austrians are nice
Oh,
and they appreciate tourists if
oh,
you behave yourself. You have to
uh-huh.
behave yourself.
Yeah.
But, but they like that. Yeah. Yeah. Austrians. Yeah.
Yeah, Europe is like a Disneyland for adults, with all the castles and
Oh
I've
yeah.
spent some
Oh
time in
yeah.
Europe.
Yeah.
My favorite,
Yeah.
I didn't get to Vienna because of the weather, but we went to Prague instead.
Hmm.
Gorgeous city,
Oh
gorgeous,
yeah.
gorgeous,
Hmm.
like right
Yeah.
out of a storybook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bruges too, and then, nice, and Italy, all the country, all the cities in Italy, art and everything.
Yeah.
It's good. Europe's a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
And but you spent time in the north too, right? You sound like you go to Sweden and Norway and
Oh yeah. Yeah, we went to yeah, Norway was in NATO. I don't think Sweden was there yet. We went up there to look over their defenses.
oh
They've got a lot of mountains up there. They've got a lot of things in the mountains up there.
yeah. Now that's another topic that only I have this opportunity to ask you. There's been some scuttlebutt news about Greenland if the global temperature changes and more North Pole
Hmm.
glaciers melt, there's going to be a Northwest Passage through the Arctic.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
that makes Greenland a more significant military outpost because we
Yeah,
have
I think
troops
so.
there
I think
now.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've landed on Greenland, but just crossing the Atlantic. I've just landed there. Never spent any time there, you know. And
But you could see how that might become a strategic, sort of like mid Gibraltar, sort of like a
well,
bottleneck going
maybe.
across.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. Right now, it's a colony for Denmark.
Hmm.
So if the Greenland people want to switch to become a territory underneath the auspices of the United States, it's okay.
Well, they're in NATO.
Greenland's in NATO.
Denmark is in NATO, and Greenland's in
Okay,
NATO. We have bases up there.
okay,
Yeah, so I mean,
right,
we have something up there. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's territory. Okay, all right. That's about it. I don't know. I don't know what do you think is it sounds to me like we should continue to support and just use the NATO solution for maintaining peace. That's for Europe and Russia, but it
Well, we
doesn't
should
handle like
try. We should try. Yes, because that is the system we have. You know, and if somebody attacks one of the NATO members, then they've attacked them all. That's the
right,
theory. And we'd all go, and that's why we're keeping a couple 100,000 troops in Europe. In Germany and Poland. That's why they're there.
right.
And if we get attacked, and if they pull something off, we've got the nuclear weapons too.
Yeah, but I mean, we do have other areas potentially of theater, like with China China's threatening to take
Yeah,
over
well,
Taiwan and
the big thing there is how much support are we going to give to Taiwan? You know, would we go to war over Taiwan?
well, we made an alliance with Japan and
Yeah,
Australia.
we would go to war over Japan. Probably go to war over South Korea. I don't know if we would about Formosa or not. I'm just not sure. You know, yeah, that one. China. You know, China's China.
You been there?
Oh yeah,
No. Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah.
Yes, I've been there. I've spent good. I was just there
No,
last
it's
year.
the Chinese are very nice.
Right.
Very to tourists, they're very nice. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah. And they're
Chinese are.
very,
Yeah,
they're highly disciplined.
yeah,
Not necessarily the most cheerful, but they're because they're, obligated. They're
yeah,
very, oh,
yeah. Oh
everybody,
yeah,
they're burdened. They
yeah,
have burdens, but
yeah,
fantastic cities,
yeah.
fantastic, very
Yeah.
positive effect,
Well,
hardworking.
if if you haven't been there, I recommend you go on a trip
Oh, no, no,
sometime.
I've been there. I was just there last year. I was
Okay,
there for
where'd
about a
you
month and a
go?
half.
Yeah.
Well, mostly it was a celebration of something. So we started in Thailand and went on a boat for about a
Hmm.
week, and
Hmm.
then I went home with my friend who lives in Shanghai. I've been there
Hmm.
before, so I've been to a couple
Oh
of
wow, Shanghai. Yeah. Oh yeah.
hot city. So I was there for
Yeah.
about a month.
Oh boy. Well, good.
I like
Yeah.
Shanghai. I like Shanghai.
Yeah. Oh, I did
Very
too. Yeah.
very nice,
Yeah.
good place,
Yeah.
and good management, nice city.
I
You know,
had I had two classmates from Thailand, and we went over there once, and they really treated us very well in Thailand. Yeah. Oh yeah.
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 So the world's a good place. It's easier to
Yeah.
get along than to pick a fight. But
Yeah.
there seems to be a certain amount, megalomania, insanity where somebody wants to take over and say, no, we have to change everything. So let's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pack the guns and start shooting. And
Yeah.
we got,
Well, that's
but we
true.
got internal stuff. Like I think I'm concerned about like the cartels. I mean, nothing's perfect. So you're always going to
Hmm.
have something like in the US, you're always going to have some crime and you're always
Hmm.
going to have some kind of gang activity.
Hmm.
You just can't eliminate anything down to perfection, to
Hmm.
zero. But the cartels and the epidemic with I've forgotten it, not Adderall, what's it called? The drug, the thing, fentanyl.
Yeah.
That's a major, major problem. It's 100,000, 60 to 100,000 people a year
Yeah.
kicking off. And when you
Yeah.
understand how they're doing it. And so it's okay. I think it's appropriate to put federal attention on the
Oh
cartels.
yeah. Oh yeah. 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 I was in Panama for 4 years. Yeah. I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's when Reagan came in because of drug trafficking in Panama.
No, we've always been in Panama because of the Panama Canal.
Yeah,
We
no, we
built the
went into,
Panama Canal, and we owned a piece of Panama, which Carter gave away.
yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately, a lot of people were upset over that. But we used to own the Panama Canal, and when you own the Panama Canal, you basically own Panama. But
right.
now we don't own the Panama Canal.
Well, right.
Well, that's the way it goes.
But no, no. Under Reagan, Noriega, not Noriega.
Yeah.
Was that the guy who was the president of Panama? We
Oh,
took him
there's one
out.
guy we threw in jail. Yeah.
That guy. That's
Yeah, it
what I'm
wasn't
saying.
Noriega, it was another one. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, whatever the name. So that was under Reagan. I'm pretty sure. So we went in with troops there.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a lot of woof woof.
Yeah,
We've got this airborne division at Fort Bragg, the 82nd Airborne Division. And I mean, they would give their firstborn son to get a combat jump, you know. I mean, that means everything to them. And of course they jumped at the chance of parachuting into Panama. because
right,
they could get a star on the jump rings. You know,
right.
I've been in the airborne before, and I know how those guys think. You know, it's a lot of woof woof.
They want to see some action. They want
Yeah.
to move. They want an
Oh
opportunity
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, Pam.
to use the skills they have.
Yeah.
So those are, that's there's a lot of territory, a lot of different areas where the military
Yeah.
has to be addressed or not. It's not like Switzerland, or it's not even like France or Sweden.
No. No.
There's a lot of different things going on here. But everybody,
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to all those countries. The only country I never went to in South America was Venezuela
you've
because it
been
was
to,
rich. Because
but
it
you went,
was rich with oil. I never went to Venezuela. I've been to all the others. You know.
and
And
as part of your tour,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
wow,
And
Brazil,
Venezuela
Ecuador,
now is a big problem, but it wasn't a big problem before. But it became a big problem.
because of the oil.
Well, yeah, they were a rich country. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here comes a guy. Let me let him in. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I've been
so
to all those countries except Venezuela, and
but
and they're
Peru,
they're they're
Chile,
interesting countries. Yeah, yeah,
Peru and Chile, Ecuador,
yeah.
all of
Oh
them.
yeah, yeah. Argentina is the most interesting because the Argentines have a big British influence, and
Oh,
they're
I thought it was mostly Italian.
well, but British too, and Italian, and so forth, and yeah, they're interesting. The Argentines, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is, Mike Jankowicz. Did you ever meet him?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, he just joined us. He's in New
No.
York and he's a historian. He's somehow connected with Canadian participation in World War II. But Mike, we were just talking
Well,
about
Canada, we
Canada. Go ahead.
Canada was a tremendous ally,
During World
tremendous
War
ally.
II.
Oh yeah, and when we when I mentioned those two islands, the two Aleutian Islands. Well, we took the first one, and the second one we were going to take with the Canadians, and we got there, and the Japs were all either dead or gone. But that's the origin of some of these special operations forces that we used in Europe later, and the Canadians were a big part of that. You know, they were good soldiers, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Mike, have you ever heard about that? There were two islands at the tip of the Aleutian Islands that the Japanese captured during Pearl Harbor. And
Attu and Kiska, yeah, they were
Yeah,
fishing
the
islands. Nobody really lived there. They just went up there to fish. You know.
Thomas was right. The Joint Canadian American operation, the Japanese had already evacuated when they got there.
yeah,
So, but in the Canadian forces, um, they had a policy up until late 44, where conscripts could not be sent overseas. So they got around that because they were able to send them to the Aleutians because it wasn't overseas. So that was an interesting situation.
Yeah,
Canadian
I
soldiers,
bet it was. Yeah.
but the far
Well, the
more
Canadians are in NATO. The Canadians had a big base in Germany. I don't know if they have it in Germany anymore, but you wanted to go to the Canadian base. You wanted to go down there, and just because it was a nice place to go. And oh, by the way, you could buy a car down there and have it shipped to the United States.
yeah.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
I mean, you could
The
go on the
Germans loved
base.
it.
You can go on the base and buy a BMW and have it, or
Well, you could
a
buy any
Mercedes.
car you wanted, and they'd deliver it. You pick it up and when you got home.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was nice. That
ac-
was a good deal. Yeah.
Actually, by the way, the biggest contribution the Canadians made in World War II was obviously in the ETO, the European Theater of Operations, and obviously, Dieppe was a bit of a disaster, but D-Day, they
Oh
were
yeah,
they were
they
crucial. They were a
they were
crucial
big on
component.
D-Day. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
D-Day
yeah.
and the week following. As a matter of fact, right up to the end of the war. I mean,
Oh yeah, oh
Canadian
yeah,
Canadian Army
oh yeah,
was
yeah.
crucial. And then afterwards, Canada was now at that point they were under overall British command. But when they got to Korea, if had there been an invasion of Japan, the Canadians would have been under American jurisdiction.
Hmm.
They were going to participate, but not as part of British, overall British or Commonwealth forces. In Korea, they were operating as part of a Commonwealth brigade,
Hmm.
but one company of the Princess Pats held off an entire Japanese division that was trying to cut off an American division during the retreat from when after the Chinese invaded, and they were given a presidential unit citation. I think at that time it was only
Oh yeah, I
three.
know the Princess Pat Light Infantry is famous.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
are
they were
famous.
incredible.
Oh yeah, and they come down here at Fort Lewis to train sometimes.
Yeah,
And
yeah. The training is. I mean, there's so much joint operations.
yeah.
Um, I know the Royal Winnipeg Rifles, which is the reserve unit, but they send funnel soldiers into the Princess Pats, the regular
Hmm.
force, and
Yeah.
they're always crisscrossing
Yeah,
American
I
battalions
went to
wherever they're
Ranger
going.
school with a couple of Canadian officers, and they were tough. I'll tell you, they were tough guys. They were good
Yeah,
soldiers. You better believe it.
they're, they're
Yeah.
tough, but they they're a lot of fun to be around.
Oh yeah, sure they are. Sure they
Yeah,
are. And I mean they're known to take a drink, just like the rest of us.
or two or
Nothing.
10.
There's nothing wrong with Canadian whiskey. Let me tell you.
Well, no, 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 nothing wrong with it at all. And by the way, I mean, I never forget. I was talking to this woman who was in the band. She was a member of the band of a reserve regiment of the
Uh-huh.
Canadian Forces, and she had it was a regimental dinner, and she had had a couple of drinks. So I said, "So what is it you want to do with your career? Keep on going the band?" She said, "No, I want to go to the front lines and kill bad guys."
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Well,
they're not.
they're like somewhat like the Australians. They're not. I won't say they're like the Australians. They're somewhat like the Australians. And the Australians had a big area of operations in Vietnam. And I remember once I landed there, we had to refuel. I'll never forget this. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. We landed, and boy, they met me at the airfield with a 16-ounce can of Foster's ale, and says, "Here, you got to have this. You got to get it down. You got to do this." Well, I didn't want to insult them, so of course I drank it.
Of course, yeah. That was
And
very
they
nice
had
of
a
you.
they had a big chunk of Vietnam. The Australians did. Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
they were in Vietnam,
yeah.
and
They were good. Yeah.
during the Iraq war, the Iraq invasion in early 2000, Canada did not join in, but Canadian ships were attached to U.S. battle groups, and they
Mhm.
served a vital function
Oh
in the
yeah.
battle group. So you had Canadian, basically destroyers and frigates.
Hmm.
Um, so, so they said, well, what they said to the chief of naval operations for Canada, they said, so what do we do? They said, okay, well, we're not going into Iraq. So whatever you do, don't bring your ship on land.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they said, your ship is not allowed to enter the ground, to go on the ground of Iraq. So,
Well,
so they
well,
didn't run aground, so they were fine. But
I
they
I
were,
I think we feel very comfortable having our northern boundary belonging to Canada, and they don't have to
yeah,
join the United States.
no,
They'd probably be better off not doing it. And
no. First of all, they're already starting a, no, no. I mean, that's absurd. I mean,
yeah.
we need a separate, we need a separate, uh, We need a
But
separate,
they had I think they had a referendum on it today or this week.
about Canada. Canada's not going to, no, that's,
Yeah, I heard
that's
that.
absurd. That's
It's
just,
absurd, but I mean, somebody's running a referendum.
Well, we should feel very comfortable with Canada up there.
Oh, yeah,
I
sure.
feel very comfortable with Canada, up
Yeah.
there, because I think they could probably do it better than we could,
yeah.
quite
Well,
frankly, certainly as well. And yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
they have a lot of Arctic warfare training. I
Yes.
mean, every unit, I think, does
Yeah.
Arctic warfare training.
Yeah.
And you got the Canadian Navy. They're now, they're trying to push through 7 destroyer icebreakers.
Yeah.
So heavily armed icebreakers,
Hmm.
which the U.S. I mean, if they guard the Northwest Passage, that's one less thing the United States doesn't have to do.
That's
One
right.
major
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So it's essential that they remain intact and separate. And right now, I guess this new guy, Carney, if he wins the election, he will. He has promised. You know what happens when politicians promise, but he has promised to say that he's going to increase the defense budget, which I know the Canadian forces have been looking to do for
Yeah.
20
Well,
years.
I can. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a positive thing.
Well, they're our best neighbors for the defense of North America by far.
Yeah. And look at NORAD. I mean,
Yeah.
North
Oh yeah.
American
Oh
Aerospace
yeah.
Defense Command. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I gotta take a phone call for a second. So I'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. But Duke, I got a question for you.
Now,
So he's
wait,
gonna
what do you do? Are you a college professor or?
who, me? Oh,
Yeah,
Mike? Me? No, no,
you.
no, no, no.
We've
I'm
been
just doing
talking here.
video editing. I've done I'm not a professor. I don't have anything academic. I've just mostly worked in computer stuff, IBM
Oh,
and
good, good,
different
good,
companies
good
on
for
the East
you.
Coast and the West Coast,
Yeah, good.
mortgages.
Mhm.
And, living in California, you do a
Yeah,
little bit of acting, you do a little bit of counseling, you do all these different things as a typical California.
yeah.
But, you
I,
have a
I I
diverse
remember
background.
when we had Fort Ord. I was up here at Fort Lewis. We used to go down there quite often. They were part of what we called Sixth Army area, and
To
went down to
to
Fort Ord. And
to Los Angeles?
no, to Fort Ord.
Oh, Fort Ord. Where's
We would
that?
go down to Fort Ord because we were close to the golf courses. You understand?
Yeah.
we could go to Pebble Beach and those things. And of course, Monterey was lovely. I lived there as a kid during the war. I can remember
About 2 years, 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember how, not too long ago, we went up the coast. That's like a trip. You go up the coast and back
Yeah.
down. We
Well,
go to Portland and I
Seattle.
forget it.
Maybe you went to Seattle. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Seattle and Portland and these islands off on the coast there
Mhm.
and Washington. Yeah. But anyhow, Carmel,
Oh
incredible
yeah.
city,
Oh
incredible
yeah.
city. It's like just one boutique store after another. It's sort of like
Yeah.
very European. And oh,
Guys,
you're
I hate to
back.
do this. I'm
What
coming from I'm coming from an outside area. So the area I'm in is about to close up in a few minutes. So ask me whatever questions you want to ask me now, because you may lose me in a few minutes.
Okay, yeah. So Tom came up with an idea in our discussion that I hadn't heard before, which was if they can come to some kind of a settlement between Ukraine and Russia where they partition it. So they give the Donbas they separate it and they make it more autonomous. And the way to the standard for it is East Berlin, because he was stationed there in Germany.
Mhm.
And so it took 30 years, and eventually that's it. They came back. But just because if you could make a temporary thing in the Donbass and the Crimea, And then, if you say, okay, both sides recognize them as autonomous, and it's you wait 10 or 20, 30 years,
Yeah, yeah,
Putin's going to
yeah.
be gone, everything's going to change. Then you can,
Well,
reestablish.
if we can avoid, really fighting, we
Well,
sparred with
actually,
the East Germans, and we sparred with the Russians. And but just like my story in 1961 when we stood them off with the threat of nuclear warfare. I don't know if that would work again, but maybe something would. You know, so I think we're going to be involved in that country for a while, and I'll
yeah.
probably not see the end of it. Yeah.
Well, I think also that what I couldn't figure out is I think what Russia also wants is they want Black Sea access. So they want
Oh yeah.
access
Right.
to
Hmm.
those
Yeah.
ports.
Yeah.
And I mean, why couldn't they work out a deal where they would take maybe just a small piece of territory just to show, and and then um, and then give them access to the port.
Well, they do pretty much control the Black Sea, right? Russia.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they control
So
it now. I think. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there's room for settlement, but both sides have got to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
guys,
I mean that the
I
thing
may try to
I
come
think that
back on. I may try to come back on in a few minutes, but I'm being expelled from the building. So
you may
I'll see
be.
if
Where
I
are
can
you
get someone from the
located?
outside.
Tell us where you are, Mike.
Where are
Well,
you located?
he's leaving the building. He's in
Oh,
Manhattan.
okay. All right. Well, that
He
makes
may
I'm
be
in
back in a
the
couple of minutes.
I'm in a university building and it's closing. So
Which university?
CUNY. But I
CUNY.
got to sign off now, guys. I'm not
Okay.
sign off.
okay. Hasta la próxima. Until the next time.
That's where I went to school.
I'm just going to mute
City
and I'll
University
see
of
if I
New
can get back
York.
on in a few minutes.
University of where?
And I'll see if
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. So, City University of New York.
Oh, okay. New
We used to
York.
call
Yeah.
it CCNY, City
Yeah.
College of
No,
New
no.
York.
I'm somewhat familiar with New York. I used to go down there all the time as a cadet.
Oh,
And
you should go back there once in a while. It's a good place to visit. You don't want to live there, but it's a good place to visit.
oh yeah. Well, there was a hotel next to the Astor. Was called the Piccadilly Hotel. It
Uh-huh.
was a theatrical hotel.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't expensive. And the guy that ran it would always give us a room when we came down. Always
Yeah,
give
well,
us, and he would do that. And sometimes if he was crowded, we'd sleep on the pool table. But he'd put us up. And the Piccadilly Hotel, yeah,
I
that was
wonder
New
if it's
York is
still
neat.
there.
I remember going. I saw Julie Andrews in her first show in New York City. The boyfriend, Julie Andrews, you know, and I always remembered that. And I saw some other shows too, but that was the one that impressed me most.
The Piccadilly Hotel, right?
It was right across the alley from the Astor.
Yeah.
The Astor was expensive, so we didn't go over there too often.
There's still a
Piccadilly was
Piccadilly
not
Hotel
expensive.
Piccadilly.
Uh-huh.
Hotel Piccadilly, right? I just looked it on a map.
It's not there anymore.
It's not, huh?
I don't think so. The last time I was in New York, it wasn't there. They were
Let me
doing
try
something
New
else with the
York.
property. Yeah, yeah. See, because we could take the train from West Point down and be there quick.
Now
know.
there's a Piccadilly Hotel. It's in California.
Well, it
It's
was
just
it
in
was just right off Times Square.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
this is outside of Fresno.
oh well, no.
So they moved.
Yeah,
So
that was a good
so
place. Yeah.
this is when
Well,
you were going to West Point, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You could go down there and they'd take care of you, and they'd put you
You,
up for the night, one way or the other. They'd get you in.
so you're living on the West Coast there. I don't ask, are you married and kids or
Oh
single or
yeah,
what?
well, my wife's gone, but I have grown children, grandchildren, sure. Yeah,
Oh, you got a bunch of kids, huh?
yeah. Well, I have two grandchildren. Yeah, yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
That's good. So, do you ever go back to West Point to visit on like
Well,
Memorial
it's
Day?
been a while since I've gone back to a reunion. No, I've gone back several times, but not in the last few years. Maybe not in the last 5 or 6 years. And
Yeah, I
I
have.
don't know that I want to go back anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, that the
Sometimes you
territory's
can't go
nice.
back, right?
Yeah, that's
You
true.
just remember it, but you can't go back. Or if you do, it's a disappointment.
Yeah, because you go back and there's nobody there that you used to be there,
Well,
and
you don't know
talking to
anybody in
yourself.
there anymore, and the place is different, and
Yeah.
one thing or another. The big difference in West Point is when they let the women in, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that changed the whole place, when they let the women in. So it's not the same.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm taking a look at something here. I don't understand why this is doing this. Okay. Anyhow, yeah. Well, I was bringing up that, did you ever hear of a place called Germantown on the east side of the
Oh
Hudson?
yeah, yeah.
So I got a niece up there, and
Hmm.
she started my wife's niece, and she started a horse rescue
Okay.
for 60 acres in Germantown. And
Hmm.
just it's got about 14 horses now. So we
Oh
go over
yeah.
there, visit her there. It's out in the sticks. And
Hmm.
it's very nice country, nice. It's part of like the whole West Point thing. And I think
Well, a lot of the land at West Point was given to the Army by the Rockefellers.
oh,
A lot of it. Now, the basic post is small. It goes back to the Revolutionary War. But there's maneuver room. There's a lot of other stuff, and the Rockefellers don't gave that. Probably in World War II primarily. Yeah.
yeah, but I remember also FDR used to have a place up there somewhere.
Yeah, Hyde Park's not very far at all
Yeah, that's an
from there.
interesting
Yeah,
place
no,
to
it's
hike
on the other
around.
side of the river, but it's not very far away at all. And that's where Roosevelt's buried at Hyde Park.
Yeah, and I spent a lot because growing up in New York, I used to go hiking up there and near, let's say near it's Finger Lake, what's it called? Oh, I can't remember it now. But it was I remember the Red Apple Rest, but that was the name of a restaurant. But the parks, the Seven Lakes area,
Mm-hmm.
they're very nice.
They
Adirondack.
call them the Finger Lakes, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just a gorgeous territory. That's my sweetheart in nature. Is those
Oh, sure.
Adirondacks there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
The way things grow and everything.
if my wife had been from that area, we'd probably go back more, but she wasn't. So
Where was she from?
after a while, it's just you can't always go back.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just have to let it go. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah. Where was your wife from?
Georgia.
Oh, yeah, right. Atlanta?
No, Cumming, Georgia.
Okay. Yeah, I got friends there too. I had a sort of
She
family.
was she was she was a little old country girl, and she joined the army and became a
Oh,
nurse. And I met her in Heidelberg.
yeah, but there's something about those southern women that are
Oh
so
yeah. Oh yes.
so
Oh
so civil, so friendly,
yeah. Ich
so
hat mein
accommodating.
Herz in Heidelberg verloren. You speak any German?
No,
Ich hat mein Herz in Heidelberg verloren. I lost my heart in Heidelberg. There's a song.
yeah.
It was a Student Prince opera, and
Nelson
the main
Eddy,
song was
Nelson,
"I Lost My Heart in Heidelberg." Yeah.
sounds like Nelson Eddy and Jeanette MacDonald, the student prince, or maybe you're Mario
Well, it
Lanza.
wasn't them, but it was like that. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I've met everybody I've met.
The prince goes to Heidelberg for the education, and he meets Katja, the bar girl. You know, and they have the romance. And then his father has to call him home because his father's going to die and he's going to take over the principality. And so he has to leave her behind. And ich hat mein Herz in Heidelberg verloren. I lost my heart in Heidelberg.
Yeah, I mean, any females I've met from this, and not that I've dated. Well, maybe I did. I don't even remember, but they were just charm, Southern charm.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know. It's hard to define.
Well, she
It's
didn't
just
bitch and complain. And I was
Right.
not the easiest guy to get along with by a
Right.
long shot. She never bitched and complained, you know.
Uh-huh.
No, no. And
And
she sure
she,
could have, because I was not a good I was not easy to get along with, you know.
but she
But
had to travel with you as you traveled around, didn't she?
oh,
Didn't you,
sure she
like when you
did.
got
Oh yeah, yeah.
relocated?
Oh yeah. She I she went to some of these places, you know. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's positive and it's negative because it's, in that
Well,
kind of
she
a
was the nurse.
profession.
She was an
Oh,
army nurse in Heidelberg,
oh,
and I
okay.
was stationed in Heidelberg, and I met her. I met her there. Yeah.
So let's say you went to Mali or wherever you went around the world that you were sent for
Uh-huh.
a reasonable period of time. Did she get reassigned to go with you sometimes?
Well, when I came back to the United States, I thought I was going to have to leave her in Germany, and I played golf with a medic at the hospital. There's a big hospital in Heidelberg. That's where Patton died. There's a big hospital there, and I played golf with this guy, and I'm pissing and moaning about I have to go home and I have to leave my wife behind. And he interceded with the hospital commander, and she went home with me. And that's the way things go in the Army. You know, I'm playing golf with this guy, and he says, hey, Tom, you're not, you're not in the game today. What's the matter? And I says, oh, well, I've got to go home and I've got to leave my wife behind and humma. And he says, and he got the whole story, and she came back with me.
And she got assigned to local.
It's the Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
She came back. She came back. Well, she didn't come back right with me, but I think I waited about a week and she came. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's how it goes,
Yeah,
And
but once you had two kids, that wasn't, you were still traveling around once you had the kids?
well, she had to get out when she had the kids. She had to get out of the Army when she had the children, you know. So
Okay.
she got out of the Army and just then she's a housewife. Yeah.
And so she didn't go along with you on your deployments.
Well, some of them she did. She went to South America with me a lot when I went down there, and of course Europe. No, she did quite a bit of traveling. Yeah, with me. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's a good life. That
Oh
sounds like you
yeah,
had a
yeah,
good life.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's nice. I've been
Well, I
around
think
too.
I think I need to probably. I don't know what I need to do. You probably want to go do something else too.
Yeah, we can call it quits.
Yeah,
I'm glad we got together though.
yeah.
And
I'm
you
not
should.
sure how I got you. I was talking to somebody else, and all of a sudden you appeared.
Oh, I see. Well, tell me,
Yeah.
why don't you do me a favor and give me your email? Do you know how to use the
Okay.
chat?
My email is tmorgan58
Okay.
at
One second.
hotmail.com.
T Morgan 58.
58 at hotmail.com.
Okay. So I'll put you on the list
Okay.
because there's a lot. I don't think you've seen hotmail.com. I don't think you've seen our full list of all World War II documentaries. I'm sure
Well,
there's some of them you'd
I
like.
sometimes when I'm playing around with my computer, I get into some of these things, and of course our buddy,
Jim, yeah,
huh?
your
No,
buddy.
the other guy, um, Christ, I've never met him in person. The guy whose uncle was my tactical officer at West Point,
Oh, okay.
uh,
Jim Dingman.
Dingman. I've never met him, but we communicate this way because as I like his programs, Dingman
Yeah.
programs, and he seems to be interested in the military. He's somewhat younger than I am, but it's fun. Yeah, yeah.
Well, wait a minute. What are you like 82 or 85 or
88. Yeah, I'm 88.
88?
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Wow.
not anywhere near. I think he still has to work. I think he's a working professor,
I don't
Dingman.
know.
I
Okay.
get. I think he is. I've never
It's
met him.
unbelievable that you're 88. I mean, you must be surprised, or your friends must be surprised because
Yeah,
you look
I've
and
got the
act like you
telephones
ain't.
ringing.
Okay,
And can I talk to you later? Yeah. good.
sure, I'll catch you later. Good night.
Hello. Oh, it is joined? Okay, I'll log on. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
I'll move you out. Remove.
Yeah.
Well, that was an unusual meeting, and I'm going to call it quits now. It's only 7:16, but it's too late to get started in the conversation with somebody else. It was an interesting conversation with Tom Morgan, and he's a military guy. He's been around the world many times, and it was just a pleasant conversation. Maybe I'll clean it up in editing and repost it. Okay, hope to see you next time. Today's going viral was March 12th, 2025. Adios.